Welcome back for another episode of the Voice of Generation Climate TVOGC. Today we have with us a fantastic founder of a fellow carbon or climate tech company, Thejas Nair, the co-founder of Carbon Bright. Carbon Bright is based out of the US and they're predominantly a carbon accounting focused company. Thejas, what a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure is mine.
Of course. So Tejas, what got you into the world of climate tech? What was the inception story?
Yeah, I had spent like almost like 20 years in like big data space, enterprise big data space, and I was not able to see, work on the real action, seeing the real impact of the things that I was working on. So I wanted to work on something with more direct impact on things around me. And I turned 40, so maybe there was a bit of a midlife crisis too. And then that's when I started exploring various areas where I can have an impact, and then found things around climate tech, started reading more about it, and found like some great applications of data and AI in climate tech.
Yeah, and you've actually picked the first part of carbon in the entire carbon value chain, which is carbon accounting, which is the knowledge layer, as we call it, empowering enterprises with the right data, right? See your
Yes.
carbon emissions on everything, and you've taken a very interesting product-specific approach. So can you describe that a little bit better? So maybe in your own words, we can hear what does Carbon Bright really do? How do you
Yeah.
do it? And how do your customers benefit as a result?
Yeah. So the traditional carbon accounting is usually done at a corporate level. Like you look at your like what is called scope 1, 2, and 3, like
Yeah.
categories of emissions, and gives you a high level view of where your emissions are. And when it comes to like companies that are making real products, most of their emissions are related to like the supply chain and what customers do it and how the things get disposed, right? And for those companies, the you get very actionable data only if you look at the product level, right? Because the way you can make your reductions is by making choices around supply chain, how the product is
Yeah.
designed or used, right? So this view of things at the product level gives you more actionable data for most of these product companies. That's why we decided to focus there. And then the second part was that is very challenging to do. It is very expensive. It takes an expert many weeks and months. So the today's approaches, which are very manual, doesn't scale, right? So there was an opportunity to solve that problem as well. So one is like the scope of things, and the second thing was the potential to have an impact in that area.
Yeah, and when we talk about decarbonization and like net zero, it really begins with what you offer, which is
Right.
showing emissions and in a simplified way and an affordable way. Only if it's affordable and simplified can people and more enterprises really be able to take this service, right, and get started. Knowing
Yes.
your emissions is what allows you to then know what to cut emissions wise, and then finally like possibly offset the rest and really have a pathway to net zero.
Yes.
So can you tell us about like some customer of yours that you worked with for a while and how they really benefited? Is there a case study you can run us through?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, some of this like trade-offs that you have, like when you are like making a decision on like making a product more sustainable, it's not like obvious like what is better, right? One example is what the case we worked with Marks and Spencer, like a major retailer based in UK, right? So they are launching a new line of products for the cleaning products, which takes they are replacing their plastic bottles with reusable aluminum bottles. And so the idea is that you can bring back the aluminum bottle after use and swap it for a new one, right? And that bottle keeps getting reused. They'll refill it and supply it for the next customer, right? But then like it takes energy to like more energy to make an aluminum bottle than a plastic bottle, right? It also takes energy to like transport that to a cleaning facility to do the cleaning. There is water consumption and all that, right? Energy consumption. So it's not very obvious. Okay, is it actually more sustainable to reuse? First of all, like given that aluminum bottle takes more and like has a bigger footprint than a plastic bottle, like how like if it is better, like how many reuses is required to do that, right? So we work with Marks and Spencer to get their like data and like model it out to get an understanding of how many reuses are there. So then they can work on like having like consumer impact, like consumer behavior change, right? Based on this data, they have something to target. So they know that so many reuses are required to make it green, right? So yeah, so I mean, data is very critical to make all these decisions on understanding whether the product is more sustainable when you make a change.
Yeah, and that's what the concept of life cycle assessment comes into, right? It
Yes,
may take more energy to produce that aluminum bottle, but with more uses, it's actually far more sustainable than the alternate choice.
exactly.
Net benefit for society, right?
Yes, yeah.
And unless it's quantified, no one will really be able to know that.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect thing. Yeah, you are looking at the full life cycle of the product, all the way from like mining of the materials to like manufacturing it, like filling it, like, and then all the way to like consumer using it to then the final disposal, right? In case of this
yeah,
reuse case, the manufacturing and disposal happens only once, and then you have the cycle in between, right?
yeah.
So modeling all that, yeah, is very important.
That's pretty cool. I'd love to learn about this, how you used to approach this problem pre AI and now post
Yes,
AI, right?
yes,
Because it's starkly different. Um,
yes,
the old carbon accounting industry and service was so heavily like data set driven, manual, consultants driven, manual report generation driven, and now it's all changed.
yes.
So, can you tell me, like at Carbon Right, what was it like pre AI and post AI? Or was there ever a pre AI for you? Or were you just AI
Yeah, I
native
mean,
all the way?
so the way we started is we started with like I mean, we didn't have like a fully automated AI system on the get go, right? So we started working with customers with partial automation, right? And then we learned like by doing lifecycle assessments on our own with the help of like our advisors who are like experts in this field, right? So we did like a bunch of manual work, and then like we kept automating more and more of like the all the main areas where we saw like heavy manual effort was involved, right? So pre like especially in like in our customer use cases, like pre before our tool, it used to take them like weeks of for a consultant to do it, and so it used to cost like $5,000-10,000 just for a single product, right? And weeks of time. Now with our product, like for certain product categories, you can just do it in a couple of minutes. So once you have the data, that is like you just need to collect the data, and the AI will fill in the data gaps and then like do all the calculations for you automatically, like all the like consumer use, root calculations, everything, and then it'll give you a result in a couple of minutes, right? So you have your initial results in a couple of minutes, and then you can refine it with more and more primary data based on the hot spots that you see. So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
and
like, it has
it brings
really
down,
revolutionized.
brings down cost a lot and brings down time a lot. Both of
Yes,
which are really, really valuable, right?
yes, yeah. The other thing is, I mean, there has always been a desire to do life cycle assessment, but because of the cost and time constraint, like it was not being done at scale, right? It was not just affordable. So there was always this latent demand for this, and now we are able to solve that latent demand. So companies that would do just like 2 or 3 sample products uh, for LCAs, now they are able to do it at like hundreds or thousands of products because of this.
Yeah, and you're right. Like earlier, each product used to cost a lot to get done.
Yes.
Um, a couple of $1,000s, even what I had heard for like
Yes.
each product's LCA. Now imagine a company like a Unilever that has thousands of products, right?
Yes.
It's such an expensive proposition to even get started with this. And I think like the approach you've taken is actually super interesting, which is come and at least get started, see what it looks like
Yes.
at an affordable price point, and then you can expand to product number 4 and 5 and 6 and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So like you can start with like minimal amount of data, and then like bring in more like data. Like for example, you can see, okay, like if manufacturing your is a hotspot, you can talk to your manufacturer to see if they're doing anything different, anything like renewable energy, and then you can bring in more and more primary data, right? So it's, I think,
Yeah.
important to get started, right? So you have at least like a reasonably good idea on where your hotspots are, and then you can work on getting more data and like digging deeper.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also saw that I know you've given us a product demo as well, which is really cool. But I was exploring your platform on my own end, and I saw you have like a visualization tool, right? That
Yes.
actually allows you to see what happens if you lower if you change the materials or you lower the emissions on a particular product. Uh, what is that? What's the role of that? So
Yeah.
it's almost like a modeling tool, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the best time to make a product decision is like before you like make the product, right? In the design phase, right? So like after like you have a product in the markets, it's much harder to change your decision, change your suppliers and all that, right? So this enables you to like make changes to your product and simulate. Okay, let's say if I make this material substitution, or let's say I'm using so much of recycled material, or packaging is replaced from plastic to glass, or vice versa, right? You can see the impact before you go to the market, right? And then you're able to have like much more informed decision, and like you'll be able to make more effective use of the data if you do it before like the product goes out. And of course like you can also use it for product redesign later. Like if you're going to launch a new version, you can compare what the new version is going to be like compared to the previous version, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to believe that it's easier to build a new house than to refurbish an old house,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Once the
Yes.
house is already built, refurbishing it takes so much more time.
Yeah.
Product recall and like redesign and all, right? So right from the
Yes.
inception stage, you can actually design better.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, like design is such a powerful lever for climate action. Uh,
Yes.
and you can minimize waste, you can actually design better materials, and I think just visualizing it really helps people to know like what options are available,
Yeah, yeah. But
right?
on the other hand, like we also see customers like who have made some decisions based on like some hunches, right? They have some data and they have made a decision on like believing that this is the most sustainable choice, right? So sometimes they come to us, then ask, okay, look, how do we compare with the like reference product, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of like a tool is also helpful in understanding, okay, how much more sustainable are you compared to a reference product? And then like based on that data, then you can go and communicate to your customers, right? Why you like how much more sustainable is your product, and why the customer should like prefer this product or like the competition.
Yeah, that's really cool. So outside of Marks and Spencer, can you give an example where a design intervention like this, where some
Mm-hmm.
company actually came and like played out a scenario, they actually designed their product that way, and net it turned out to be far more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Is there an example that you have like that?
Yes, so one company that we work very closely with is a company called Marshare that makes hundreds of like new products every year. They do custom design for their customers. Right? So what they do is like create more like promotional products for the like leading like travel brands and like cosmetic brands, right? So they like loyalty reward programs and things like that. So when they work with the customer, like the customer has a specific budget and like you need to work around that, right? Then with this tool, they are now able to say, okay, if they substitute this material with so much of recycled material, all right, or this type of plastic with a different type of plastic, like what is going to be the impact, and then they can also discuss, okay, this is going to be the like sustainability benefits that you have by substituting this material, and then they go back to the customer and say, okay, these are the different price points of the different solutions are there, and these are the like the climate impact or like an overall environment impact that is there, right? So when a customer is making a decision, they are now able to choose between designs looking not just at the dollar cost, but they're also able to look at the environmental cost. And so this is happening like day in and day out in their conversation. So like previously this they didn't have this data, like reliable data that they could supply to the customer. Now is really impacting their business and the product design that they're doing.
Yeah, I like that you use that word in economic cost, the dollar cost, as well as the environmental cost, the true cost. And
Yeah,
the true cost has got to be dollar cost plus environmental cost as well, right? Do you
very
feel
true.
like consumers actually care to see that? And are more people asking for it, or what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, it of course depends on the consumer, but overall, like many studies have shown that consumers are willing to pay an extra premium for more sustainable products, right? And you are seeing more and more companies that are using sustainability as their differentiator, right? So this is one company that Marshall is one company that using sustainability as a differentiator, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And what sectors do you feel like are typically emission hotspots that are prime, just rich for carbon accounting, and also where their customers care enough to see emissions? What are the sweet spot sectors you've found?
So there are a couple of different variety, I mean, areas like for different reasons, right? So we also work with like some of the furniture companies. So the furniture companies, they are being influenced by like things like LEED certification and things like that. So like people who are building new offices, they want LEED certification, right? So that is driving. So this is the business use case for that kind of a B2B kind of scenarios. We are seeing that increasing demand for more sustainable products, right? Companies that have net zero targets, they want to buy things that are more sustainable. So that is driving a pull. In terms of consumer products, I think we are seeing that in more of like premium type of items, like people are willing to pay for like sustainability information, right? Especially in like consumer packaged goods, are seeing a lot of demand in like cosmetic sector, for example. They care both about safety and sustainability. I mean, this is just like in the areas that we have been working with.
Yeah,
As a
yeah.
startup, we work with a few
Furniture,
sectors. But
cosmetics.
yeah, but I'm sure like there are like other sectors that we are not looking into that are also like heavily influenced by customer demand for sustainability.
Yeah. And would you say most of this is voluntary or compliance? So customer demand, is a very powerful force.
Yes.
But for the enterprise or brand that does it,
Hmm.
is it mostly voluntarily driven or compliance law driven?
Yeah, so what we are seeing is like depends on the area and sector. I mean, so in Europe, for example, there is a like regulations that are coming up around digital product passport, right? So that is driving like a lot of these like cosmetic companies and like textile companies to do like prepare for that by having all this information around sustainability, because like very soon like you'll be required to have something like a QR code on your product that gives you sustainability information, right? So that is being driven by like regulation. Europe is ahead in this regulation front, but you are also seeing like all these multinational companies that are doing business in Europe getting prepared for this, and like that is driving a lot of the demand, right? And then the other thing is we are seeing is like kind of B2B scenarios. Companies that have set net zero targets voluntarily, they're asking for this information from their suppliers, right? So it is sending this demand like upstream in the supply chain.
So Europe compliance driven
Yes.
and supply chain driven.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and the supply chain, since it happens to be global, right? So that is like having ripple effects around the world.
Yeah, for sure. Even we are seeing a similar pattern play out. But what about, you're in the US and the US has backtracked in climate goals and all of that for the last couple of months.
Yes.
How has that affected the space we're in?
Hmm.
And how do you see this playing out going forward? Like, do we backtrack from climate overall, or is it just a temporary hiccup? Do you see more enterprises actually setting net zero goals or rescinding? How do you see this entire geopolitical environment play out for
Yes.
climate
Yeah. I
change?
mean, yeah. It's been like interesting few weeks, not just for us in US, but like for everybody around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like every day is there is some news that is surprising. I mean, for better or worse, like the truth is that US has not been, even during the previous administration, it was not very ahead in terms of regulations around climate, right? Most of the things that were done in the previous administration were around like funding for like climate reduction and things like that, not so much on the regulatory front. So there's not so much of regulations to be removed for for good or bad. So that is not going to have a like significant impact, what I'm seeing. But I'm also seeing like some startups, for example, that we were talking to, they seem to have impact. They're pushing out the plans for um, climate reductions and things like that, or the impact measurement. But on the other hand, like the larger companies that we have been working with, we are not seeing any change. They are still proceeding with their plans like they had before, because I mean they are impacted by Europe. Like say furniture companies are still impacted by say LEED certification and things like that. So we're not seeing like massive change in the market. And then like most of these companies are thinking beyond these 4 years. So this is like phenomenon
Yeah.
for like next 4 years. Like they see this as like a temporary up and down, right? And the long-term trend, I think the big companies are seeing is that they need to be prepared for climate, whether it's mitigation or adaptation. They need to be prepared, and they're, I think, looking ahead more than just this like administration's term, right? So overall,
That's really good
the
to know.
impact
It's a
is, yeah,
temporary
I
hiccup.
think, yeah. Overall, the impact has not been much, is what I'm experiencing.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because I know there was a lot of fear and panic and
Yep.
this concern, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Climate tech is dead. What? But it's an empty hiccup, like you said,
Yes.
and I think there's a lot of show and tell, but behind the scenes, companies are just carrying on with their agenda,
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
right?
we have seen like some, like a lot of rollbacks in some other areas like DEI and things like that. I haven't seen any similar rollbacks in like climate goals by these large companies. I think those things are still proceeding. I think they're seeing this like much more with a long-term vision than just a couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can't give up on climate. It's still
Yeah.
ever important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And also
So
it's
it,
like a competitive thing, right? And like if you want to compete in markets like Europe and things like
yeah.
that, you need to continue like working on these things.
Have to, absolutely. So in this world, where geopolitically it's like very hostile, but behind the scenes companies are carrying on with their
Yes.
own mandate, right, and just
Yes.
powering through. Uh, what do you see Carbon Bright's role evolving into? So you're offering that layer one carbon accounting, product level simplified system,
Right.
um, but from where you are now, where do you want to get to? And what, fast forward 2 3 years,
Hmm.
what would you have done? Enabled for how many companies, at what scale, and what would make you feel satisfied?
Very quick question. What we are like, our long-term vision is to enable like companies to have like good amount of information to make the decisions, right? To be a catalyst for change, right? So whether it's at like a decision being made by a consumer or a business, be able to like provide them with the data to make a decision on like what choice is more sustainable, right? So, and this also means that we had to work across the supply chain, be able to like empower like suppliers to like transparently communicate what their like emissions are, and then like companies to be able to like get this access, have access to this transparent information, right? So like overall have a big impact on like this like data exchange on sustainability between companies is the like our long-term vision.
Hmm. Knowledge is power, and
Yes.
empowering your customers with the right knowledge is the key
Exactly.
goal here, right? Even we
Yes.
have seen that play out. Like uh, we call it the layer one carbon accounting layer. Before
Mhm.
everything else happens, before you can know
Yes.
what to cut emissions on, before you can actually offset, you have to know
Yes.
what your emissions are. Just that information knowledge layer is so empowering for a company to like see
Hmm.
that these are the hot spots, right? Like this is where wastage is happening. This is where there's a potential to actually become more efficient.
Yes.
And there's so many decisions that can be made just off of that data, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's you could have, bring up a good point there. That many of these like decisions that you make around like sustainability or climate you tend to have co-benefits, right? They
Yeah.
like uh, can bring up things that help you improve your efficiency, right? Cut costs, right? So it will be a like win-win both in terms of environmental cost and dollar cost in many cases.
Yeah. Emissions hotspots are typically cost hotspots too,
Yes,
right?
yeah, very often, yes.
Yeah. Very, very often.
Yeah, and again,
Very,
so what that is one area, and of course, like if you are making something more sustainable, it can also become a differentiator for you, driving up your revenues, right?
yeah, absolutely. I find your AI-driven approach really, really cool. I truly feel like that has so much potential now, just because very many companies were gated out, like they were priced out, or they were unable to wait that long and pay as much as was expected from this carbon accounting industry and system, right?
Yes.
And now it's going to truly become like a lot more democratic, a lot more openly available, a lot more affordable. Um, where do you go from here? Like you already gotten into product level AI based. carbon assessments. How do you see the role of AI evolving in your workflow going forward?
Yeah, I mean, so right now we are focused on a couple of verticals, like in consumer packaged goods, consumer durables. We are having discussions, exploring a few other verticals like chemical industry and so on. But like overall, like one thing that we need to do is like make it more seamless to expand to more use cases, like and
Yeah.
more types of products, right? So right now, like there are a few product categories where it's like really seamless. You can do the LCS in minutes. Some other like use cases, it acts as an accelerator for a lifecycle assessment expert. Like they can
Mm.
do the lifecycle assessment more fast, right? So our hope is that like over time, like we'll cover more and more use cases where there's more automation, and then we can power these experts to do more higher impact kind of work, like focus on like reduction guidance and communication and things like that. Right.
And even reporting, right? That's very
Yes.
important. That's the last step in the entire value chain. You've retrieved data from your customer, you've processed it, and then you
Yes.
actually report it back in very compliant templates.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Are you using AI for that too?
Yes. Yeah. So we use AI to like do the initial lifecycle assessment. You have the data, like a lot of numbers, and then there is like also provides you like various ways to look at it, like different kinds of like hotspots. It you can easily identify using various graphics that we create on top of it, and then we also create a detailed report that follows the international standards around lifecycle assessment, which is like like usually like a 30 plus page PDF report, which takes a lot of time for somebody to write manually. All that is
Yeah.
automated, and you have that report that you can share as a with your like other stakeholders as a more detailed report that is following the ISO standard guidance.
Hmm. Really, really cool. I'm quite inspired by your model. I'd just like to move into the last bit of this, which is, more about you personally as a founder.
Hmm.
I want to like when you made the transition, what got you into this? You got into midlife crisis and going into climate, but how has it been being a climate tech founder? For the next set of would-be founders entering the space,
Hmm.
what lessons do you have to share? Like, how's your journey been? What's the biggest highs you've gotten out of it? What are the biggest, possibly the biggest lows that have happened along the way too?
Yeah, it was not an easy journey. So I had spent like almost 20 decades in my previous career, and then like I was not able to find enough time to venture outside and explore new ideas. So I took a break. So I started reading more about this. I did the Terra.do Learning for Action
Yeah.
course, which was like really useful. Like,
I did the first cohort of that too, and it was incredible.
oh, is it? Wow. Okay, you're my senior
Yeah,
there.
March 2020 was like the guinea pig cohort.
Wow. Yeah. So it
Yeah,
was really impressive experience. I mean, you get to meet a lot of people
yeah.
who are like passionate like you, and it's very motivating, right? So, and it also helps you identify which topics you are really passionate about. And then, like, I started exploring like various areas where I can apply my previous skills, right? And then, like, I initially explored some ideas in agri-tech, like talked to a bunch of folks, and then realized my ideas did not have like a good fit in terms of product market fit. And then like that's when I like then like I kept having more conversations like with other potential co-founders, and then that's how I met my co-founder David. So it took me a while to find a good fit. So one thing I would advise is, yeah, you have to be patient. Like if you're making a career transition, especially, you have to be patient, right? Otherwise, I mean, like if you're starting really young, like you can maybe like target specific areas. Like you can look at, okay, what are the skills that climate tech companies require, and then you can plan ahead, right? But if you're making career transition, I think I found that you have to be really patient to find the right fit. It takes a while, but I think most people eventually find a good fit.
Yeah, you have to be patient for sure.
Yes.
Patient and keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, and like,
Yes.
and I feel like in trying, keep putting your product or solution to the market, and let the market tell you like what's working, what's not, and keep refining
Yes.
along the way.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like in our journey at Carbon Bright, also we like have like made several iterations of the product, right?
Mm.
So like initially we started with a version of the product that was more like a Google of lifecycle assessments, right? That would like scrape things from the web and automatically create lifecycle assessments. And then we then later pivoted to more of like a deeper life cycle assessment, which is like more standards compliant, like generates like official like LCA reports and so on, right? So, and then we had to like also narrow down on the verticals and things like that. So it takes like a lot of discussions, a lot of trial, putting things out, see what works. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the journey of every founder.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah. Yeah. A lot of time you keep questioning yourself. Yeah. And then, but yeah, basically, I think the best thing to do is try something out, talk to customers, see what works. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tejas, it's been a pleasure to have you with us on this episode of TVOGC. Really appreciate you and your time, and we're rooting for Carbon Bright and empowering a lot more enterprises to actually get started with their climate journey. This is step one, right?
Yes.
It's after this that everything else falls in place. But without step number one, we don't really have a shot at solving climate change. So really appreciate you what you do, and yeah, like power on with Carbon Bright, and we'd love to collaborate with you someday too.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's we need multiple companies, like because like no one company can tackle the entire spectrum of things that needs to be done, right? So this is
Yeah.
step one. Like so, then there is reduction, and then there is like climate finance and offsetting, like what you're doing, right? All those things play a major role. Yeah.
Absolutely. Not a
Yeah.
zero
So
sum game at all, right?
no, no,
Not
not
at
at
all.
all.
Yeah.
Yes. The thing I would say is, like somebody else said, like even if there's a company in that space doing something, the space is so important that it makes sense to have more and more competition, like people trying to create better solutions than the other one, right? So
Yeah.
the competition is great also.
Competition is healthy. In fact,
Healthy.
it
Yes.
makes you want to do better, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, you just get complacent and like lax on standards, and yeah, like
Yep.
the end customer experience should be amazing,
Yes.
right? And it only gets amazing when there's multiple players trying to improve the system and get better.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm fully a big believer that it's not a zero sum game at all,
Yes.
and lots of companies in this space should and will have an opportunity to actually create great solutions.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And a lot of opportunities for partnerships too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tejas.
All right. Thanks, Sunny. Great talking to you.